Robert Plank Show, episode 376, Mindset Success Secrets. Overcome fear, doubt, and procrastination by simplifying and taking action with Bedros Keuilian. Hey everybody, and thanks for listening to the show. We're talking right now with Bedros Keuilian, and what's great about what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to hear about Bedros's life story, his ups and downs, and his lessons, but then also things that we can all apply from what he's learned. So as a child, Bedros ate out of dumpsters, and he couldn't speak a word of English. And today, Bedros is a best-selling author, and he's the founder and CEO of the world's fastest-growing fitness franchise, which is called Fit Body Bootcamp. And he's also famous for helping 24 of his clients go from being in debt to growing seven-figure generating empires and helping thousands more turn their passions into multiple six-figure businesses. So Bedros, glad to be talking to you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I appreciate you being on and being generous with your time and all that fun stuff. So can you kind of start us at the beginning and tell us, what you're all about and how this all started for you?
Yeah. So what I'm really all about is I'm the immigrant edge and I'm the American dream. You can just summarize it that way. And by that, I mean, my father decided that we're going to escape communist Russia in 1980. I was 6 years old at that time. And, when you're 6 years old, you just, as long as you're with your mom and dad, you're fine. Everything's happy-go-lucky. No issues there. But what was pretty cool is that we came to America and we were broke. And the reason that was cool is because for me, as long as I was with my mom and dad, I didn't know the difference. And so if my dad said we're diving into the dumpsters behind the grocery stores to get food out, well, to me, that was a treasure hunt. And if we didn't have lights because we couldn't afford to pay our electric bill, well, as long as I was with my mom and dad, it was actually pretty fun hanging out in the dark. So I grew up with this immigrant edge mentality where I got to see my dad really not only hustle and grind, but also get resourceful in times when he didn't have resources. And that to me was one of the biggest things that was how do I say this, one of the best entrepreneurial lessons I can get, and I still use today, which is when you don't have resources, get resourceful. So you fast forward 20 some odd years, and I decided to become a personal trainer. I've always known that I am the type of person that likes to serve. I want to help people. I want to be of service. And so being a personal trainer, waking up early in the mornings to help people get in shape and start their day off right and live healthy lives, that was my thing. And even today, even though we've got one of the fastest growing franchises on the planet, we're a two-time Inc. 5000 company, I still look at myself as a personal trainer. The difference is now I'm training millions of clients through all of our Fit Body Bootcamp franchise locations and through all the coaching clients that I get to serve who have their own businesses, gyms. These days they have more than just fitness businesses. My coaching clients bleed into other industries as well. But man, it's been such a tremendous voyage. And it's all because of this mindset of when you don't have resources, you get resourceful. And I've had to do that literally dozens of times throughout my entrepreneurial career.
And I love stories like that where like you literally started from nothing and you went through all the ups and downs, because a lot of times like you hear about someone's story and they leave things out or they got a little bit of help, and I think we've all gone through like those cycles where you kind of you have the feast and the famine, and during the famine times you kind of have to cut things or see what's most important to you so that when the feast happens you can take the most advantage of it. And so I mean, as you've kind of grown in all these industries and had all these coaching clients, do you have like a number one secret to this mindset that you have?
Yeah, the really number one secret to building an empire is really to keep it simple. And so most people end up freaking themselves to death. They just get freaked out over all the what ifs. What if this happens? What if competition comes up? What if the economy crashes? What if people don't like my product or service? What if I create a funnel first and then a lead magnet and then move people up the ascension ladder? And most people will overcomplicate things by way of the funnels and the processes and by way of just overthinking it. And so the number one secret I share with my new clients is what is the lowest hanging fruit that we can tap into right now in your market space that you haven't tapped into? And usually they can identify that. The difference is they come to that with a complicated plan. And my job is to take a 20-step plan that they have and distill it down to the top three things they need to do to monetize and serve their audience.
And that is super cool in that a lot of times just like taking that super complicated plan and trying to explain it to someone else in itself simplifies the plan, or even having those outside eyes if someone hasn't seen your super complicated plan before, just like seeing it from that, getting that fresh take really helps to kind of narrow things down. And so I'm really curious, like, why do you think people fall into this trap? Do you think it's like the doubt, or is it a form of procrastination making this super complicated thing? Like, why do people seem to gravitate towards this complex stuff?
I think the reason people gravitate towards complex stuff is because when you don't understand something, you just assume it's hard. I'll give you a great example. About 2.5 years ago, I took up surfing. Now, before that, a lot of my friends who are surfers would take me out to the beach and they go, "Hey, look at the waves. You see the waves?" I go, "Yeah." I go, "Do you see a pattern in it?" "Nope, I see no pattern." They go, "All right, now pay attention. You're going to see how the waves eventually will kind of get smaller. In fact, will stop for a period, and then they'll start back up again." And when they said that, then I saw the difference. Until then, it was complicated. It was just one wave after another. But I saw that, and they go, "That's called a set." So if you're paddling out to catch a wave, you don't paddle out when you're fighting waves. You paddle out when the set has stopped, and you paddle out, you wait for the sets to begin, and then you catch a wave in. "Oh, okay, got it." And then they go, "Hey, you see how there's people kind of being pulled out into the ocean?" "Yeah, well, that's called a current. You see the pattern. If you stay out of the current, you won't be pulled out. You won't freak out. You won't have to exert all this energy." "Yeah." And so you hit the nail on the head when you said outside eyes. Where entrepreneurialism is concerned, when we don't see the entire picture, just like I couldn't understand how the ocean worked and how waves worked, to me it was complicated to surf. So I got to time the waves. I got to get out there. Then I got to see the right wave I'm going to take. I got to paddle for it. Holy hell, once I paddle for it and it's taking me, now I've got to try and pop up and actually go a specific direction. That's nuts. But it's all one step at a time. And someone once, one of my mentors told me, "Hey, how do you eat an elephant?" And I said, "I have no idea, but that sounds complicated." He said, "One bite at a time." So really, the human brain tends to complicate anything they don't understand. When I was broke and I didn't have any money and I had a mentor, his name was Jim Franco, all I kept thinking was, I can't wait to be like Jim Franco. And I kept thinking that his life was complicated and there's a lot of moving parts and his business is complicated. He was kind enough to bring me into his business in Buena Park, California, show me his office and all of his sales reps on the floor and his operations department. And I realized these are normal people running a normal business. They have a system and a process, and as long as they follow the system runs the business. And so it very quickly got uncomplicated for me. And so for most people, it takes outside eyes to tell them, "Hey, look, what you think is really complicated and overwhelming, it's not. You're making it out that way because you just don't understand it." Once people show you piece by piece the elements of, okay, you're going to paddle out, wait for the sets to start, the sets have started, choose a wave, paddle for it, you're now, body surfing, now pop up. If you do one thing at a time, you're going to be successful surfing, you're going to be successful in business as well. They correlate equally.
I really like that attitude, and what I'm hearing from you is that I think a lot of people, they can't separate the forest from the trees, and they just like you said, because they haven't mastered it, they just like see every little piece of it, and they don't understand what's more important than other pieces, or what to ignore, or things like that. And so it's definitely a really good lesson. And also, what kind of comes to mind as you're explaining the surfing analogy there is that, there's all kinds of moving parts, there's all kinds of things to worry about, and it's like if you went in and you tried to get every single piece of it right the first time, you'd completely fail, right? It's like the very first time you drove a car. If you tried to worry about the gas pedal, your signaler, your mirrors, your driving, like you totally fail at it. But it's like if you focus on taking some action, getting a few things out there, repeating it, getting a few things automatic, then you can kind of slowly kind of build up this muscle, or build up the skill, is what I'm kind of hearing also from you.
That's exactly it. You nailed it. It's a muscle, and we have to build it up. And nothing infuriates me more than when I'm on social media and I'll see someone that has like 500 followers on Instagram, and they've decided to click the public figure button and call themselves a public figure because they want to be like Gary Vaynerchuk, but they haven't put the like Gary Vaynerchuk work in. They haven't written 2 or 3 books like Gary has. They haven't pumped out 1 million videos like he has, but they are hustle and grinding, and I put that in quotes, and call themselves a public figure because they think that that's the big moves they got to do. When in reality, I got an idea. Just go online and you figure out how to make money first before you start teaching people. So it's the same thing. It's people who try and overcomplicate things. I'm going to be like Gary. Gary wasn't like Gary until he decided to just do the work, put his head down. He did it for a decade when no one was looking because no one knew of him. And then once he proved the concept, he came out and helped the rest of us. He helped the world. And so I think more people need to just go put their head down, take it piece by piece, figure it out, get successful, take your licks, have your failures, be resilient, overcome those failures, be successful, then go out and teach it or scale it. But holy hell, when people go out and just think that they're going to just do it it's so insulting and offensive for people like me, people like you, like Gary, like whoever, who have spent a decade and a half doing it. And these people think they're going to come out of the gate and do it right away because, well, it's social media. And if I just say it, then it'll happen.
Yeah, that sort of turns me off too when people they almost look at copying as the shortcut. And whenever I see one of those like the big influencers like a Gary Vee, I always like to look at their current stuff and then go back and look at their early stuff and sort of see how they sort of grew into that personality or how things changed and which just came from making those mistakes or putting out that body of work over time and kind of just growing into the kind of person that they were supposed to be all along, as opposed to just on day one being like Gary Vee is. And so I'm really curious about some of those stories that you have about some of those like kind of early successes and failures when you first kind of got started with this. So anything fun like that to share?
Oh, absolutely, man. The very first venture I took was a venture called TotalMuscle.com. This was in 1997, 98, as the internet was coming about, before the big bubble had burst, the internet bubble in 2000. I created a website called Total Muscle, and my whole plan was that I was going to buy supplements from Europa Supplements, and they're a distributor just like what GNC would use, except I wouldn't have a storefront. Therefore, I'd be able to sell for lower cost because I could sell it online. So I had one of the first online shopping carts. I had, and thank God, man. And this goes to show you how far Authorized.net has come. Back then, Authorized.net was brand new, back in 95, 96, 97. But long story short, I used Authorized.net. They kind of supported my shopping cart. I hired a web designer, took pictures of all the supplements, and when I went to sell them online, I realized I had no audience. There was no Facebook to market to. There was no email list that I had. There was no email marketing system, in fact, and there was no Google for me to optimize or buy traffic from, no YouTube for me to do how-to videos. And so one of my very first failures, and this is a great lesson for anybody watching here, is when you are too far ahead of the curve, if you don't have the financial backing to basically survive the test of time while Google is doing its thing and being built and email marketing is coming around, then you are going to fail. And that's what happened. I lost $55,000 and threw away a ton of supplements. The $55,000 was the amount of money that I maxed out on credit cards to buy more supplements each time that I would buy them, and they would expire, so I couldn't sell them anymore, and I had to throw them away and buy more. But I realized then in that moment that, I'm going on AOL and contacting one guy who lifts weights, because, you can check, back then you could check someone's AOL profile and see if they work out or bodybuild or power lift, which tells me you take supplements, and then I would send you a handwritten email. You can imagine how many of those a night. I'd send about 200 to 400 a night while I had a daytime job. But that's not going to be enough to drive traffic. And so I moved some supplements, but not enough, and ultimately went out of business because I was way too far ahead of the curve. Today, you look at bodybuilding.com and BioTrust and all these other online supplement companies, and they're rocking it. So that's just one thing. The other thing was I launched a software program called High Tech Trainer. High Tech Trainer was an online personal training software. Once again, way too ahead of its time. The difference was this time I borrowed money from a client who actually, he was a personal training client turned mentor, and I borrowed money from him. So this time I had financial backing. And High Tech Trainer was meant to fail. Robert, the difference was that I had the financial backing that I could educate the market space. And after a year and a half of educating the market space and racking up $126,000 in debt, or the money that I owed my mentor, I was able then to start turning a profit to the tune of $20,000 to $26,000 a month. That was the average monthly income from High Tech Trainer, and quickly paid off my debt and made High Tech Trainer a successful online software. So there's two examples of one was destined to fail. They were both destined to fail. Just one did fail because I didn't have enough money to continue down that path. The other one didn't fail because I had the financial backing. But between then and now, I've gotten smarter, and now I if I know something's going to cost me, let's say $500,000 to launch, I make sure that I have 3 times that in financial backing, just in case things don't go as planned. And as it turns out, the road to construction is always the road to success is always under construction anyway. So things never work out as planned. And that's why it's good to have all that extra money and marketing savvy in your back pocket.
Super cool. And I imagine that a lot of people had never considered that they could actually be too early for something. It seems like everyone's always worried that they're too late. So I mean, what I'm hearing from that is like that a lot of things can go wrong, and that sometimes we have to kind of be unlucky and learn a few things the hard way. That way we have that knowledge to use later. And I think that when I think back at times when if I made a website or had a project that didn't work out, or put a lot of time into it and it only made a little bit of money and wasn't really worth it, I used to think that those were wasted years, that was like time that I wish I could get back, or if only I'd started earlier. But now I kind of look back at those sorts of things as there were always some kinds of marketing lessons, or if nothing else, reminders that time is such a precious thing, I guess. And sometimes if we have a plan, we have to get it done yesterday, as opposed to waiting 5 years until everything works out just right. And so, do you kind of feel the same way that, like, looking back at those kind of failures, even if something totally crapped out, like there are always some kinds of lessons for you to
Robert,
make
did I
better
lose
decisions
you?
in the future? Nope.
There you are. I lost you there for a second where you said you kind of feel the same way. Want to repeat that piece again?
Yeah, so do you sort of feel that same way, that those past failures kind of gave you the marketing knowledge, or taught you to do things in less time, or I
Oh,
mean,
dude.
any kind of like big lessons there, even from like the failures were like at the time you thought completely useless, but now years later, like there's always some sort of nuggets in there, right?
Dude, not only did I think that those failures back in the day were useless, I thought they were useless, unnecessary, and I felt bad for myself. I felt sorry for myself. Today, I look back at those lessons and I look at those as battle scars, and that's wisdom that you can't get at a university from an MBA program. You can't get that from anywhere. You can maybe get it from a mentor, but not even from a mentor, because sometimes we're so egotistical that our ego says, well, that happened to you, but that would never happen to me. But let me tell you, brother, if it's happened to you, you're going to make sure it never happens to you again. So some of the greatest lessons I've had were the failures of many businesses, of many ventures, of partnerships, where I thought that was unnecessary, that was cruel. Why would the world do this to me? I thought I was meant to be successful. And today, those are the lessons that I not only teach to my coaching clients, but use to shortcut the success of my newest ventures.
So when you're coaching clients, or even maybe you sometimes, if the doubt ever creeps in, or if you feel blocked or procrastinated, do you have any usual like go-tos or reminders or lessons of things that kind of get you out of a funk, get you motivated, energized again?
Yeah, I'll tell you the thing that I always go to is because look, I'm human. I have funky times too. And when you're running a international franchise, while you're writing a book, while you're running a coaching program with over 1,000 coaching clients in it, there's a lot of moving parts in my business, man. I've got a big team behind me. And for all that to happen, I do have some funky times, and we do have the Federal Trade Commission that we have to abide by because we're a franchise, and so we get 11 audits a year voluntarily. And so those things do bring a man down. And the thing that I always remind myself is this is a choice that I've made because it's an obligation that I have. And those two things bring me back up. No one is forcing me to be an entrepreneur and to go through the shit that I'm going through. It's a choice that I've made. And number two, it's the obligation and duty I have because I know this is my gift. Like I know this is the purpose why I'm on this planet. And if everybody who goes through any kind of funk or depression or setback or challenge or adversity goes, hey, this is a choice that I'm making. I put myself in this position. I could stop anytime I want, but I'm not gonna because this is why the Lord or the universe has put me on this planet, then you will never give up.
I love it. That's a great reminder. So basically, take ownership of the decisions that have led you here. Life didn't happen to you; you happened to life. And so, I don't want to keep you here for too long, but I want to make sure that we know all about your speaking, your books, any project you have going on. So, can you unpack some of that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate the opportunity for that. So I've been blessed enough where I've got a wonderful team of 45 people who work with me here at the headquarters, and they run majority of our franchising business. And so that's kind of set on autopilot and growing rapidly. And my coaching business, of course, that is very automated as well. I've got great business partners and coaches, co-coaches who help grow that empire as well. And so recently I wrote a book called Man Up. And Man Up, the whole title is actually Man Up, Cut the Bullshit and Dominate Your Path. And it's really for entrepreneurs who are always stuck in this place where they're spinning their wheels. They know they have more potential. They know they can make more money and more impact, but they're stuck spinning their wheels. And Man Up teaches you the 3 very specific things that you need to focus on to grow your income and make a bigger impact. So that book, Man Up, comes out July of 2018. And the only other thing that I've actually started recently is I love coaching. I'm meant for coaching. I'm meant to serve. And so now that I've been able to build myself an empire and automate the thing, I started a mastermind called the Empire Mastermind for entrepreneurs who are making 7 figures, who want to 5x, 10x, 20x their income, to come into that group. And that's been really fun to work with really high achieving entrepreneurs and take their problems from their industry and reverse engineer it, take it apart, put it back together, and make it more successful.
Super cool. And where can people find that Empire Mastermind?
All the information for my mastermind and my upcoming book is on bedroskeuilian.com.
Cool. And is there an easy way to spell that, or is there like a shorter link for that?
Unfortunately, there isn't. The good news is if you come anywhere close to Bedros Keuilian on Google, I'm the only guy that pops up. It's such a unique name. So you can just write Bedros, Bedros, and I'm the only guy that pops up.
Perfect. So Google's your friend. So great stuff, and lots of interesting things to sort of chew on here. And so we talked about keeping it simple and having that process and knowing that sort of success is your obligation and all that. And so having said all that, I mean, do you have any kind of final thoughts of encouragement or reassurance or any kind of final thoughts for everyone listening today?
Yeah, I do. And this is a thought that somebody would have shared with me in the past. It's that people always overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year, and they underestimate what they can achieve in 5 years. And I know the internet seems to promise us very quick, fast results, and it's really taken our attention spans and made them shorter. But if someone could just put their head down and work on a project or a passion for 5 years straight, I promise you they'll be a multiple 7-figure industry. But everybody seems to want it now or yesterday.
Or they give up too soon. Yep, I completely agree. Well, cool. Well, lots of interesting stuff today, and everyone make sure to go to bedroskeuilian.com. And like Bedros said, go to Google, search Bedros. You'll find him very easily. And so I want to thank you so much for stopping by and for live streaming this on your end as well, and for just kind of sharing with us a little bit of your story, a little bit of your insights, and just things that we can all take away for those times when, like you said, we know we can do better, or maybe we haven't fulfilled our complete potential, or we feel like giving up, or we feel like there's a better way. Always good to have that refresher, those reminders of what we all are capable of. So thanks for sharing that with us, and thanks for sharing what you know today.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, Robert.
Go right now to robertplank.com/iTunes to subscribe to the show, listen to other episodes, and rate and review the show.